It began with a voice from behind bars, a soft voice carried through a stuffed bear meant for a child, a simple message that said, "Happy birthday, love daddy, loves you daddy, misses you." It should have been a moment of sweetness, a small piece of love sent from a father to his daughter. But in today's world of cameras, headlines, and social media, nothing is ever that simple for Sean Diddy Combs. That small moment became a worldwide story, a story that divided people into two sides: those who saw a father trying to stay connected with his child, and those who saw a master of manipulation using his own daughter as a tool of public sympathy. The video appeared online through his son Justin Combs. It showed a Build-A-Bear toy carrying a recorded message from Diddy himself. He is not seen in the video, only heard. His voice plays again and again. As the little girl presses the bear, she smiles. She says, "Thank you, Daddy, I love you." She kisses the bear again. The room fills with that innocent sound, the kind that melts hearts to many people. It was touching, a rare glimpse of tenderness from a man whose image has been built on strength, power, and luxury. But to others it felt like another performance, a carefully planned piece of emotional theater from someone who knows how to control the spotlight. Even from inside a cell, the bear became a symbol. Some saw love, others saw manipulation. And once again, the debate around Diddy and his life of fame and controversy began to grow. Diddy once stood as one of the most powerful figures in music, a man who shaped hip-hop culture, built empires, launched artists, and filled arenas with his name for decades. He had been known as the bad boy of the industry, the man who turned fame into fortune and fortune into influence. But now the stage had changed, the lights had dimmed. The man who once ruled charts and clubs now spoke through a bear from behind prison walls when the video of his daughter's birthday message began to spread. The reactions were immediate. Social media lit up with comments and emotions. Some fans wrote long posts saying they were in tears. They said no matter what he did, a father's love should not be judged. They said love can exist even in the darkest of times. But others were not convinced. They said the timing was too perfect, the production too clean. The entire setup felt like a public relations move to soften his image in the eyes of the world. The phrase PR stunt began to appear under almost every post. For people who have followed Diddy's journey, this kind of reaction was not new. His entire career has been built on image management, on the art of turning every event, even a scandal, into a stage. To understand why this moment struck such a nerve, you have to look back at who Diddy really is. Sean Combs did not start with fame. He built it, he studied it, he mastered it. From his early days working at Uptown Records, he learned how to shape music and media. He learned how to sell not only songs but lifestyles. He created Bad Boy Records and launched artists like the Notorious B.I.G. and Maze. He turned parties into business and business into fame. For many years, everything he touched turned into gold. His energy, his charm, his ambition, they made him unstoppable. But power comes with shadows, and over time those shadows began to grow. There were whispers, stories, and lawsuits. The image of the successful businessman began to mix with rumors of control, aggression, and secrecy. Still, Diddy remained untouchable, his charisma and money protected him from the kind of downfall that others had faced. He knew how to redirect attention when trouble came. He threw a party when rumors spread. He posted a smile when critics spoke. He released a hit. That is why this latest video feels different. For the first time, people are not cheering, they are questioning. Because now the world has changed. The public no longer accepts image alone. They want truth, they want transparency, they want to see behind the show. The Build-A-Bear moment became more than just a family clip. It became a test of perception. Could a man under such serious accusations still make the world feel sympathy inside? That toy was not only a recording, it was a message to the public. It said, "I am still human, I am still a father, I can still love." The voice message itself repeated the words, "I love you, I miss you, I love you, love, love, love." It was simple, but the repetition was powerful. It echoed the kind of emotional rhythm that touches hearts, the kind that spreads fast across social platforms. The little girl named Love smiled and responded. The video went viral. Millions watched it, appeared on celebrity blogs and news channels. It became trending under tags like Diddy birthday message and Diddy Bear love. For fans, it was a reminder of softer days when Diddy was seen as a family man and father. For critics, it was another layer of manipulation, another attempt to hide behind love, to rebuild his broken reputation. Media experts began analyzing the clip. They said this was not accidental. They said it looked like a calculated moment designed to show vulnerability in a time of legal and moral crisis. To older viewers watching this unfold, it felt sad. They had seen this story before in different faces: the fame, the fall, the emotional apology. They knew that sometimes in Hollywood the line between real and fake disappears completely. Public opinion split down the middle. One side flooded the internet with messages of support. They said everyone deserves a second chance. They Said prison does not erase fatherhood. They said people should not forget that love is love, even when mistakes have been made. The other side grew louder. They said it was all planned. They pointed out how Justin Combs released the video. They said Diddy knew how to use timing. They said he wanted sympathy to influence how people view his case. Influencers and talk show hosts joined the discussion. Some mocked the video, saying it was like a commercial. Others defended it, saying children should never be punished for their parents' mistakes. In many ways, this debate became a mirror of modern society, where people choose sides before knowing the full story, and where every emotional gesture can become a weapon or a shield. Older audiences, who had followed Diddy since the 90s, began to reflect. They remembered when he was young, ambitious, and hungry. They remembered the golden age of music, when Bad Boy Records ruled the airwaves. They remembered how success came with glitter and pain. Now they saw a man who had everything, trying to hold on to what matters most, a child's voice saying "I love you" through a bear. For them, it was both tragic and telling. It showed how fame could lift a man so high and then leave him alone, surrounded by walls, both physical and emotional. As this part of the story unfolds, the question remains: was it a father's act of love, or the move of a strategist who refuses to fade? Whatever the answer, the world was watching. The bear had spoken, and the message had reached millions. And once again, Diddy's name was everywhere. When fame becomes a cage, it does not matter how tall the walls are, the silence inside still echoes. Sean Diddy Combs once moved through the world with a golden touch. Now the only sound that reaches his world is the mechanical voice of a bear repeating "I love you." But how did one of the most powerful men in music end up in a prison cell, trying to remind the world that he still has a heart? There was a time when Diddy seemed untouchable. He wore tailored suits, spoke with confidence, and was surrounded by people who called him genius. He owned record labels, clothing lines, and even vodka brands. His influence reached far beyond music. He became a symbol of success for an entire generation. But power without peace is like fire without control. It can light the way or burn everything in sight. For years, Diddy's name began to appear in lawsuits, stories, and allegations. The image of the fun-loving entertainer started to blur with the whispers of darker truths. Behind the glamour, there were accusations of manipulation and violence. Each time the public began to question him, he knew how to recover. He gave interviews that showed charm. He hosted charity events. He launched new ventures. He understood media better than most, and he knew how to reshape a story. But the truth always waits. When the first reports of federal investigations began, the industry fell silent. Suddenly, Diddy was no longer hosting the party. He was being investigated by it. As the legal pressure grew, his world began to shrink. His homes, his team, his friends, all became part of the story. He faced accusations of trafficking, assault, and corruption. The man who had built an empire of sound now faced the sound of cell doors closing. Older viewers watching this story unfold could not help but think of history repeating itself. They had seen the rise and fall of stars before, but Diddy's story felt different. It was not just about fame, it was about control and the illusion of invincibility. When Diddy first appeared in court, the cameras captured every move. His face looked tired, but composed. His family sat behind him, including his sons and his young daughters. They were there to show unity, but inside the courtroom, emotions ran high. Reporters who attended said that at one point his daughters began to cry. Their small voices filled the air. The room went silent. Even the judge seemed moved. People in the audience wiped away tears. It was a powerful scene, a father's past standing beside a father's future. Many felt sympathy, but others said it was a strategy. They said Diddy knew how to use emotion. They said those tears would soften public opinion. One woman who had followed the case for months said on social media that the courtroom moment reminded her of a movie scene. She wrote, "He knows how to perform. He has always been a showman, even in front of a judge." But not everyone agreed. Some said he was still a father first, that no matter what mistakes he made, his children still deserved love. And so the world divided again. Half saw manipulation, half saw pain. For older audiences, this kind of moment carried a heavy message. It showed how celebrity culture had turned real life into performance and how emotions had become part of the legal strategy. After the sentencing came the question of where he would serve his time. Reports said Diddy wanted to go to Fort Dix Federal Correctional Institution. The prison is known for having a less severe environment compared to others, but not everyone agreed that it was a safe choice. Rumors began to spread from inside sources, saying Fort Dix was not safe for Diddy. People claimed that inmates there were already talking about him, that he was too high profile, that jealousy and power inside prison walls could turn dangerous quickly. Even the judge reportedly rejected the idea of transferring him there, stating that the risks were too high. Instead, he stayed at the Metropolitan Detention Center, or MDC, a place he had already become familiar with. People who had been there said that despite the difficult conditions, Diddy had adjusted, he had access to basic amenities, and some level of protection because of his notoriety, but one thing he could not escape was the isolation the walls were thick and time was slow. There were no cameras, no flashing lights, only silence and reflection. In moments like that, people often see themselves clearly for the first time, but whether Diddy did or not is something only he would know. The Build-A-Bear message was perhaps his way of breaking that silence. It was a reminder to the world that behind the name, behind the fame, behind the prison walls, there was still a man who missed his child, yet the world did not see it. That simply experts in media psychology began discussing the video on talk shows and podcasts. They explained how celebrities often use human emotion as a bridge to the public. When a person's reputation is damaged, showing vulnerability can rebuild trust faster than any statement. They called it emotional image repair. Diddy's Build-A-Bear message became a textbook example of this technique. Whether intentional or not, it triggered empathy. People shared it, commented on it, and slowly the tone around his name began to shift. The conversation went from guilt and anger to sadness and forgiveness. But for others, the move was transparent. They argued that no genuine act of love should ever need to be broadcast to millions. They said if he truly wanted to connect with his daughter, he could have done it privately. The internet became the new courtroom, and the viewers became the jury. For older generations watching all of this unfold online, it was overwhelming. They had grown up in a time when personal moments were private, when love letters stayed between family members. Seeing such an intimate father-daughter interaction turned into viral content felt strange and unnatural. It made them wonder if fame had become a kind of curse where nothing sacred could stay untouched. Over the years, Diddy has represented both the dream and the downfall of American success. The dream that hard work can take you from nothing to everything, and the downfall that comes when power blinds a man to his own limits. The Build-A-Bear message might have been small, but its impact was massive. It became a mirror showing what the public wanted to believe. Some wanted redemption, some wanted justice, some just wanted closure. Even those who had once admired him began to question if the man they cheered for was ever real at all. The reaction online became a case study in modern media. People clicked not because they cared about the law, but because they wanted to feel something in a world full of screens. Emotion sells better than truth, and Diddy, whether intentionally or not, gave them that emotion packaged in the soft voice of a child's toy. When the news about Diddy's desperate move began to fade, another storm started to build across the internet, a storm that carried familiar names: Britney Spears and Kevin Federline, two figures whose lives had once been written in gold and gossip for many older viewers. The names Britney and Kevin bring back memories of the early 2000s when the world watched a pop princess and a backup dancer fall in love in front of flashing lights. Their romance was short, their fights were public, and their breakup became history. But time does not always heal what fame has broken. Now, decades later, the story has returned. Kevin Federline has written a book, and in it he has opened old wounds. The book appeared quietly at first, but soon the headlines began to spread. Kevin's claims were shocking. He said Britney had become unstable, that she had wished harm on her own children, that she had once struck their son and ignored their health. He described scenes of chaos, nights filled with shouting and confusion. He claimed she forced them to bathe over and over again, that she fed them food they were allergic to and ignored warnings from doctors. He said their skin burned from chemicals when she bleached their hair, and that she would storm into rooms wearing revealing clothes and holding knives. The picture he painted was dark and painful. People who once adored Britney were stunned. Some refused to believe it, saying Kevin was desperate for money. Others feared it might hold some truth because they had watched Britney's behavior online and seen flashes of instability. But even those who believed parts of the story questioned Kevin's timing. Child support had ended, the money was gone. Now the book was here. They said it looked like an attempt to cash in on the past. The online world reacted with outrage and confusion. Hashtags appeared everywhere. Some read "We stand with Britney," others said "Protect the kids." It became another battle of emotions. To understand why this story struck such a chord, you have to remember who Britney Spears was. She was not just a singer, she was a symbol, the face of an era. Her songs were the soundtrack of youth for millions of people. Older fans remembered her first hits, the smile, the sparkle, the way she moved across the stage. They remembered her rise, her fame, and her very public breakdown. They remembered the court battles, the conservatorship, the shaved head, and the paparazzi swarming like bees. Britney's life has always been a mirror reflecting both the glory and the cruelty of fame. Kevin Federline, on the other hand, represented something else. He was the man who stood beside her when she was at the top, and the man who walked away when the dream fell apart. To many, he was the villain. To others, he was the survivor. Now his new book brought them both back into the spotlight. Whether true or not his words reopened every scar that fame had left behind for older viewers. The story carried a deeper sadness. They had seen celebrities rise and fall, but Britney's story reminded them of something fragile: the human cost of constant attention. Inside the courtroom years ago, Kevin had once testified that he never saw Britney use drugs. Now in his book he wrote that she did. The contradiction was impossible to ignore. Legal experts said that such a claim could lead to trouble because lying under oath has consequences. They said the book could make him vulnerable to lawsuits. They called it risky. They said it looked like a desperate move from a man trying to stay relevant. But beyond the legal aspect, there was something more complex at play. Both Kevin and Britney had become symbols of the same disease, the addiction to fame. Both had lived lives shaped by cameras. Both had tried to turn private pain into public narrative. The question became not who was right, but why they both kept returning to the stage of media attention, even when it hurt them. When Kevin's book quotes began to trend, social media exploded. People argued day and night. Some said Kevin was brave for speaking out. Others said he was cruel for attacking the mother of his children. Fans of Britney flooded the internet with videos defending her. They said she was mentally fragile and deserved protection, not judgment. They said Kevin had exploited her from the beginning and now was doing it again. Others replied that both parents had failed in different ways. They said fame had broken them long ago, and that the children were the only ones who suffered. Talk shows and podcasts picked up the debate. Experts discussed mental health, fame addiction, and the dangers of constant exposure. They said celebrities live in a world where every mistake becomes a headline and every emotion becomes content for many older viewers. It felt exhausting. They remembered when celebrities kept their lives private, when news came from newspapers and not from endless online noise. They missed the days when stars seemed mysterious, not damaged. Now every detail was public, and every person with a phone could judge. In this storm between Britney and Kevin, people began to see patterns: the same hunger for attention, the same cycle of rise, fall, and apology that had also consumed Diddy. Each story different, but connected by one thread: the power and the poison of fame. Older generations watching this documentary might remember the golden age of Hollywood, when stars smiled on posters and kept their secrets hidden. But now nothing stays hidden. The internet makes confession a currency and scandal a business. Kevin's book sold because people crave stories of downfall. It is easier to watch someone else's pain than to face our own, and that is the tragedy of modern celebrity culture. For Britney, the story may never end. She tried to reclaim her life after the conservatorship. She tried to show happiness on social media, dancing freely in her home, but each video raised new concerns. Each post brought new gossip. The freedom she fought for became another form of exposure. From Diddy's "Build a Bear" message to Kevin's accusations against Britney, a pattern becomes clear: the more famous a person becomes, the less they own their truth. Every act of love becomes a performance. Every mistake becomes a headline. Every apology becomes a product. For Diddy, the world saw a father using love as a tool. For Kevin, the world saw an ex-husband using truth as a weapon. And for Britney, the world saw a woman trapped between freedom and madness. Older viewers who lived through decades of celebrity culture see the cycle repeating again and again. The faces change, the technology changes, but the story stays the same. Fame promises joy, but often delivers isolation. In the end, people remember the scandals more than the songs. They remember the fall more than the climb. As this chapter closes, the camera pans out from Diddy's bear, from Britney's tears, from Kevin's book, and from the endless noise